Good evening. It's Wednesday night, and welcome to my live stream. I've had a couple of people asking a variety of questions about topics for discussion tonight. Last week, I think Paul left a comment about drawing, and I spoke to him in the week, and he said he was hoping I'd talk about, because I draw a lot and paint a lot. What I used to, I haven't done as much recently because I've been working online. But I've always been quite a keen artist, if you can call it that. You know, doing a variety of things. Week in, week out, just doodles, sketches, inks, watercolours, and so on. One of the other things I've been asked is also obviously. Hi Murray, how are you doing? Talking about drawing, painting, and so on, so artistic endeavours, which I've always been interested in. And the other thing was to talk about, I think it was Matrix was one of the things thrown up, because the Matrix has some quite interesting things to show us, if you like. It's obviously deals with philosophical questions, and the music is endless. It's I don't know whether it's too loud or anything, but it's there, isn't it? And it's quite sexy. And there's about a 10-second delay, I'm afraid. Yeah, the music's gone. The music has gone. Yeah, sadly. No, maybe not. Yeah, it's pretty awful funk music, actually. And it was probably too loud. Hey, but this is technology. So, hope you guys are well. Thanks for tuning in. As I've just been saying, one of the topics that was up for grabs tonight was artistic endeavours. If people want to talk about that, that would be cool. It'd be interesting, I guess, for those that are interested. So if you are interested, show your interest, and off we go. Hey, Darren's on here. Hey, wow, Darren, I haven't seen for a long time. Conrad, I think I know who you are. I've met that many people, to be honest. Justin, I sort of know who you are. But it is good to see these faces on here tonight. There's obviously about a 5 to 10-second delay with this thing. So obviously if I don't deal with your comments immediately, or I seem to be ahead of you, well, that's the nature of the live stream. One of the other topics tonight was, I think it was Tina, who's probably hiding in the background. She never comes on and comments, but asked me to talk about the Matrix. And maybe when there's a few more people on, maybe we should do that, because it's based on a couple of philosophical principles. One of them is Plato's cave, which is an allegory that Plato uses about reality and whether this is the reality we live in. Gent's here, Gent's in the house. And Darren's obviously in Saudi Arabia. So we're getting a really mixed group tonight. It's saying there's 5 of you on there. I get a feeling that there might be a few more, but we'll see. We'll see as time goes on. I'm not going to talk about the Matrix until Craig, until I know that Tina's on, because it was something Tina wanted me to talk about, and the philosophical underpinnings of the film. The Wachowski brothers were using material from Descartes, as well as Plato, the allegory of the cave. And you're all bigging each other up. Kay's just popped up online, who's in Ghent in Belgium, and I did a podcast with Kay the other day, the other week actually, which seems to be well received. I have obviously I've done a podcast with Justin, and that's coming out on Friday, so it'll be out on Friday. I've got a lot of podcasts in the pipeline, if you like. There's about 20, and people seem to be queuing up to do the podcasts. I'm enjoying doing them, and as long as people enjoy listening to other people's lives, and it's really good. So guys, if you don't want me to talk about the Matrix, you don't want me to talk about art and drawing, what do you want me to talk about tonight? Because you know me, I'll pick a topic and then off we will go, until of course somebody comes up with a better idea. Life, the universe, and everything else. Remember, time flies like the wind, but fruit flies like bananas, which is one of my favourite sayings of all time. So, today I have been working with Murray, putting together, I guess, the prior peacheye.com website. So we've now ended up with two websites that are going to go live at some point. The HIGHERWAY.com, which I think is a work in progress due to the size of it, and the prior-peacheye.com, which will be going live well, that's down to Murray. Once I have written all the material and got the photographs together. I've also been up to the gym to sort out organising going back tentatively on Monday to do a couple of adult classes with social distancing involved. I've worked out I can actually get 8 people in the gym, so including social distancing. So we're going to see where we go with that. And if the weather's particularly nice, we'll just go outside in the car park and train there, which might be a bit of a laugh because it's supposed to be quite good next week. So we'll see. Hello to Conrad, Kay, Darren, Craig. And Craig, I will sort out a date for your second podcast. And of course, I need to get in touch with your friend Ben Cardall, the deductionist, to do a one with him. The podcast with me and Justin Conrad will be out on Friday at midday. Okay, so if you want to check out the podcast, it's every Tuesday and every Friday, unless otherwise mentioned, i.e. on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc, etc, etc. So yeah, it is what it is. The podcasts last about an hour, but quite honestly, we did the second podcast with Justin and we still didn't cover half the ground that we needed to cover, and an interesting story it was too. And Craig says he's free on Sunday and I can help with contacting Ben. Yes, of course we discussed Sunday, mate. Can you remind me what time it was? Because I am a very old man. I think it was 2 o'clock, I believe. Hiya, Paul. Thanks for jumping on. That's Paul, who actually last week's podcast asked me about drawing. So I shall start talking about drawing until Tina jumps on, in which case I'll change it over to the Matrix and the philosophical underpinnings of that film. Drawing, yeah. I've been drawing since I was, I don't know, 4 or 5. And I remember drawing on any piece of paper I could get my hands on. Literally anything. The corner of newspapers, for example. And I used to copy Mr. Magoo, who was a cartoon at the time, because I thought he was great. I used to copy Mr. Magoo and Tom and Jerry cartoons. And I used to draw and copy them all the time. When I went to school, obviously, in secondary school, I had access to paint. And I was fortunate in that I had a really, really good art teacher by the name of Polly. I don't remember her name, her real name, Miss whatever it was, but we used to all call her Polly because she was as mad as a parrot. And she used to do the most amazing watercolours and got me interested in watercolours and ink sketching. And I've done them ever since. In fact, every year I do a cartoon card, usually Marvel characters, for a good friend of mine, Mark Reynolds, who might be on here, might not, I don't know. He said he might pop on if he has the time. And they're a mixture of inks and watercolours. In fact, if you look on my Instagram page, you'll see my feeble attempts to draw and paint. Obviously, the more you practice, the better you get. It's like anything. So I guess in old age, I'll probably, when I'm 95 or whatever, I'll probably start picking up the brushes and go back to my watercolours, because I do like watercolours. But I've always been into art. I am an arty type. Although I was an engineer, I'm still an arty type. Although I've been involved in violence, I'm still an arty type. I mean, they say that of the samurai, that the samurai said there should be a balance in your life between peaceful activities like poetry, art, meditation, and of course the other side, the warrior arts of fencing, unarmed combat, riding horseback, not something I've done much of, to be honest. Most of my experiences on horseback have been pretty scary. And I think if I was to say I was afraid of anything, it's I'm not so keen on horses. And that could just be a belief that I need to change. Who knows? Maybe I should see a horse. But some horses actually I have no problem with. I think it's just been the type of horses I've been in contact with. So yeah, when it comes to drawing, I do like inks. I use pencil. I use watercolors. I've done oils. In fact, Murray will probably remember an oil that I did of a yogi sitting in meditation on a cushion with Himalayas in the background, and I was quite proud of that. I thought it was quite a good one. I did a number of cartoons for a kid's book that was never published, probably because of my drawings. And I still have copies of those to this day. Captain Tash was the story. Yeah, Kaleem, how you doing, mate? Good to see you on board. I've got 10 people up already, and it's looking good. So come on, guys, throw some questions at me. If Tina lets me know she's online, which she normally is, I'm checking my phone now to see if she's... oh, she's watching though. She is watching. So maybe I can start talking about The Matrix. Tina wanted me to talk about The Matrix. I like the film. I don't know about you guys. It's quite an interesting film. My take on it is, I think like a lot of critics' take on it, was that it was a film that explored the ideas, some of the ideas of Plato. Now, some of you might already know this story, but Plato, in a thing called the allegory of the cave, explored the idea that the real world is like an illusion, and basically he wrote this in the Republic, his famous work. And Plato said it was him imagining a cave in which people have been kept prisoner since birth. So these people have been in this cave since birth. And these people are bound in such a way that they can only look straight ahead. So they're trapped, they're chained, I believe he used the word. They can't look behind them or to the sides, only ahead. And on the wall in front of them, what they can see is flickering shadows in the ship, people, trees and animals, what the Greeks called the appearances. And because these images are all they've ever actually seen, they believe that the images, well, constitute the actual real world. Anyway, one day a prisoner actually breaks free of their bonds and looks behind him and sees what he thought was the real world is actually an elaborate set of shadows which the free people create with statues and light from a fire. So they were creating these shadows with the statues, he decides, are actually the real world and not the shadows. So he's making a distinction. Then he's freed from the cave altogether and actually gets outside the cave and sees the real world for the first time. However, of course, he goes into the sunlight and his eyes are obviously have to acclimatise to the changing light. And he has real difficulty with this. However, he eventually does, and he's fully aware of what true reality is. Okay, I've got something I want to say about that towards the end. Okay, so now that he understands what true reality is, he thinks, well, I must return into the cave and tell everybody, what he knows, teach everybody what he knows. The experience of this prison obviously is a metaphor for the process by which a few human beings free themselves from the world of appearances and with the help of philosophy perceive the real world. Of course, the people in the cave don't believe him. In Plato's story, they don't believe him because this is their reality. And some writers, philosophers, believe that this was Plato's way of creating an elite. Okay, I mean, it's a really nice allegory, and I can see why the Wachowski brothers used it in the film. It's quite a good idea. And the problem was, of course, in Plato's time, what Plato was doing was creating a distinction between the elite, i.e. those who know what reality is, the philosophers, and the rest of society. So it was more about controlling people and having power, okay, creating an elite. the Greek philosopher Pyrrho, who I know I keep going on about him, actually disagreed with Plato's allegory and said, how did he know what was real and what was not? It was just another reality. And Robert Anton Wilson talks about reality tunnels, that everybody has their own reality tunnel. And it's perfectly okay. It does the job. And it's funny because when I studied NLP, Richard Bandler said, just remember, people work perfectly. Whatever reality they're having at the moment, that's right for them. If they wish to change it, then that's fine. But until they do, that's fine too. So it was a bit of a strange one. In the film, getting back to the film, okay, Neo, he's sort of he's pulled from a kind of cave, isn't he? When he's taken out of those pods. In the first, that's the first Matrix film when he sees the real world for the first time. Everything he thought was real was just an illusion. Okay, so you can see how it fits in. Just like the shadows on the caves and the statues that were there, that were making the shadows. They were actually only copies of things in the real world. Plato insisted that those who free themselves and come to perceive reality as it is, well, that's his reality, remember, have a duty to return and teach others, and this holds true in the film as well. Okay, so Neo takes it upon himself to save humanity from the widespread ignorance and acceptance of false reality. That's my take on the Matrix. There's other parts to the film, particularly in the second and third films, where Neo starts to have, it's more like a spiritual quest, if you like. You know what I mean? It's literally like a spiritual quest where there's talk about enlightenment, causality, rebirth, reincarnation. So a lot of these other concepts are brought into the film. Great films. The first one, I think, the best. Second's not bad. For me, yeah, I'd watch them and I'd watch them again because I'm sure I'm going to see other things in them. And I haven't watched them for years. So everything I'm talking about at the moment is based on what I remember of the film. I hope that's useful, Tina. That's sort of my take on the Matrix. I don't know whether anybody else has got thoughts on it. But I'm just going to take a quick look at the comments now because obviously that topic's finished. Or is it? I may come back to it. So Kaleem says, hey Bob, maybe you should do a book on martial arts in a drawing version. Well, I had actually thought of doing all the illustrations for my book, but you know what? It's much easier just doing photographs and actually gives a lot more information. I think I had one or two drawings in the book, but that's all. I did a lot of drawings in a book on boxing for Crowwood Press for a friend of mine who did a boxing book, and I've done drawings for people in the past and ink drawings and things for their publications. So Kay, interestingly enough, said, so in our time the virologists, those who know what's going on, and 99% of the population who doesn't think this is real. Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. So we're living in the Matrix at the moment where the experts really do know what's going on and 99% population are living with dust over their eyes. They're asleep. They're sleepwalking. As Richard Bandler said to me, don't worry about trying to put people in a trance. It's getting them out of the trance. That's the hardest thing. And that, as the years have gone on, I've realised is so on the button, as it were. And sadly, people are trapped within their realities sometimes, what they believe to be real. And of course, it brings us back to belief systems. And you know, I'm going to harp on about how you need to reduce the number of belief systems you've got to a point where you suspend judgment and you have less hassle in your life. Things well, shit does happen in life. It's how you handle it, isn't it? It's how you deal with it. And when these thoughts pop into your head that make you feel bad, remember they're just thoughts. Justin, wasn't it Einstein that said there was no such thing as time and life? It's just a sequence of nows. I believe it was. And it is just a sequence of nows. Time's a useful construct that human beings use to measure things. Can be useful, can be limiting. It's like a lot of things. They can be good and bad. It's when you start to judge things purely as good and not accepting that things are bad when you've got a problem. I think once you accept the duality of life, i.e. good and bad exist, mutually codependent, and you drop them away, you're in this sort of middle state, which is quite nice. Yeah. It's a good space to be perfectly honest. Yeah, so making us live in the moment. And those of you who come on the Tuesday night sessions, the meditation sessions, will be, be aware of the conversations we have, and aware of what we mean by being in the present moment, living in the present moment, and so on. So yeah. So I hope you lot are living in the now. Well, you aren't this moment. Oh, it's gone. I'm on to the next now. Just check my phone, see if Augustina, you should be happy now. Tina always communicates me, rather than the comment box, she communicates via, what is it? WhatsApp or something? I don't know. What is it? Let's have a look. Messages. So she's on messages here. And hopefully we'll have Pete Gorman joining us tonight. So, there you go. My thoughts on the allegory of the cave, as I say, I think it's Plato's attempt to ensure that there's an elite, the people who are outside the cave, i.e. the philosophers, those who can think better than others, and those who are trapped in the cave. Pero reckons, well, they're both realities of a kind. And maybe now that the chap who's gone out of the cave is so blinded by the light of reality, he won't be able to see what's going on in the cave. My take is, maybe you should go back in the cave, acclimatise, and understand that there's two types of reality. Yeah? Maybe that's the answer. That actually, and I've just thought of this, there's two types of reality, and both are perfectly okay. So the next time you have a conversation with somebody, yeah, and you don't see eye to eye, maybe you need to step into their shoes for a moment, see it from their point of view. And when you start seeing things from other people's points of view, the preconceptions and beliefs you had start to fall away. Because remember, the beliefs that people have now that they claim are true never existed thousands of years ago. And probably won't exist in a few thousand years ago. They'll be gone. So they lack any real substance and are in a state of flux. And there you go, Craig highlighted a point here, which is the comment I've mentioned a few remarks that Shakespeare made, for example, and one of them was, there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. So there's somebody who had a handle on reality, whatever that is. So when you find yourself in a state of panic or fear or worry, remember it's just a thought. It's not real. Unless, of course, it's a saber-toothed tiger and it's chasing you. That's real. And in Pyrrhonism, that's what they call, and in Greek philosophy, actually, it's what they call evident things. Appearance, evident. Okay, when something is evident, it's real. You can feel it. Pain is evident. It's real. Understand it. Accept it. Let it go. Non-evident things are the beliefs we have about ourselves. Simple beliefs. Things like, I'm never going to be able to do that. I'm always going to be able to do that. These beliefs are pretty straightforward to deal with, but some of the hardest, the toughest beliefs are real strong dogmas, such as religious beliefs and, of course, political beliefs, which cause all sorts of problems. Just be careful what you're thinking about. Remember, you have total control of your thoughts. And we had an interesting conversation last night. A few of you guys might have been on it. Tina definitely was, and Murray was, where we started talking about, we thought, somebody said we had the thought that meditation was about cutting off thoughts. I think it was Charles said. She said we had this misconception that meditation was about cutting off thoughts, but in fact you can't do that. The brain makes thoughts, just as the stomach makes stomach acid and the kidneys filter urine, and the bowel creates, crap, which seems to come out of a lot of people as well when you actually sit down and talk to them. So, and obviously with the prevalence of the internet and communication is so much easier, there's so much miscommunication going on as well. It was so much easier when communication was harder, if you like. You know, contacting people over the other side of the world took time and effort. You know, so yeah, Plato's story. Okay, let's have a look. Let's quickly have a look at the comments. We turn what's not real into something real. Yeah, and get a physiological response. Yeah, I mean, dreams are considered real by the body. Visualization is, when you visualize something, it's considered real by the organism. If I was to get you guys to think about a nice juicy yellow lemon with that lovely waxy skin and a knife cutting through it, and you can see the individual droplets dripping down and the bitterness in your mouth. You know, some of you guys are probably salivating now just thinking of a lemon. You know, the bitterness, the tartness touching the tongue. And for some it'll be nice, for others it'll be an unpleasant experience. That's their reality. So visualization is a powerful tool. It's used a lot in hypnotherapy, along with metaphors. Craig will be the first to tell you, a good hypnotherapist, a good storyteller. And the more convincing the story, the more convinced your subject is. And Justin says, Plato's story sounds like a one-dimensional being moving to a two-dimensional world, then trying to go back to the one-dimensional world and trying to explain the second. Yeah, ish. I think they're both in 3 dimensions. Oh, are they? Who knows? What do we mean by that even? You know, that's an interesting thing, which is a topic in itself. And to be honest, it's sort of metaphysical, so it's not something I tend to spend much time thinking about. It doesn't have a very practical base. I like to concern myself with evident things and what I see and hear and feel around. I'll accept that as reality because I feel it. You know, when somebody punches me in the mouth, don't try and tell me that's an illusion. I've just been knocked to the floor. You know, it's quite interesting when you talk to philosophers about these things. Just smack them in the mouth and you go, did you feel that? And, wow, of course I did. Is that an illusion? Well, that's evident. What's non-evident are the things we need to be concerned about, and in fact, not be concerned about, to drop those ideas. And I'm salivating eating my breakfast. That must have been the lemon. And again, you can do that with any type of fruit or anything. And I've just seen on YouTube we've got a new subscriber just popped on. So I don't know who that is. It could be somebody who's going to put something interesting like sexy MILFs. Some of you may have noticed a comment came up after the recording, because obviously YouTube hang on to this. The recording came on later on, and one of the comments was, it wasn't one of you guys, well I don't think it was, sexymilfs.com, a link to a Sexy MILFs website. Sadly I've taken it off, guys, so you can't go back to that now, and it wasn't very good anyway. Yeah, it's good to see the sort of the group grow, you know, and the podcasts seem to be getting a great response. If there is anybody as well that you can think of for me to do a podcast on, please come on and tell me. I've got to do Stuart, who's on here tonight. Justin, we've got a third part to do for Justin's. Justin goes live on Friday. I've got Charles, her podcast will be going live not next week, the week after. So if you guys can think of anybody at all who would like to do a podcast, would like to promote what they already do, because that's what it's about. It's my simple attempt to help other people get out there, if you like, and get a wider audience. And of course, if you guys can, whenever you see YouTube videos go up there, as Stuart will attest to, you see somebody's YouTube channel, okay? It's not enough to just like it. In order to help them, you put comments, just a few comments. It can be, yep, that was great, that was shit. I mean, literally you can put as little as that. Because whenever I go on friends' YouTube pages, I always put a comment. Even if it's just something, oh, that's great, glad to see everything's well. Or I might be a bit more expansive than that and write quite a lot of information, you know, related to the topics that we're talking about. I do that quite a lot on Hardcore Zen, which is a great an absolutely brilliant YouTube channel, Hardcore Zen with Brad Warner, an American Zen priest who he's really down to earth, played in a punk band back in the 80s, was involved in animation in Japan, and has written a whole host of books on Zen, but really down to earth books on the Shobogenzo and Dogen. Nice guy. I tried to get him over to the UK a few years ago, but nobody wanted to pay. I managed to get about 4 people, and 10 people said they would come, and I thought it was reasonable to charge £50 a head. We would have had the guy all day, and the guy is flying in from the States, so 50 quid wasn't unreasonable really, but we didn't get it. So if any of you guys are interested in me getting Brad Warner over, he does a sort of a European tour, and he's not a very wealthy man. Yes, he's got a few books out, but you don't make money from books on Buddhism. You only make money from books that are novels, really. And I know that because I've had a Thai boxing book out for years, and it's okay. I make pennies from it, literally pennies from it, because it's not a huge market. A friend of mine who I was at university with, Mark Bellingham, he's a novelist. He writes crime fiction. He's just written his 20th novel. Very successful. And he's doing very well. Some of his books have been turned into TV dramas on HBO, on BBC. In fact, there was one on last year which was brilliant. And if Mark sees this or hears this, which I doubt because he's a busy man, he's always writing, get another one on telly. It was really good. The book transferred very quickly to TV. So if you like crime fiction, you like good novels, well written, check out Mark Bellingham. Done a bit of TV as well. You see him on quiz shows from time to time. Really nice guy. Augustina, what has she said? Don't agree with people are perfect though. Agree with the concept behind it, but think people are more working with what they've got. It's the best yeah, it is. It's the best they can do with what they've got. Therefore, they're working perfectly at the moment in their reality. So, because you've got to say, by what criteria do you judge perfection? So, for example, I had a girl who came to me who was overweight and said she was horrible, she was fat and she was ugly. And I simply said to her, I said, in some countries, the way you look would be seen as beautiful. However, if you want to change it, then that's something we can do to change it. And she thought about this, and I said, actually, the way you eat is a powerful skill. She didn't understand what I meant by that. What she did understand by the end of the conversation is I explained to her that I work with girls with eating disorders, and that the way she ate would actually help them. And in fact, it did. So she wasn't broken as such. She was doing perfectly well what she was doing at that moment in time, but she wanted to change it, and that's fine. Another note, I had a guy who wanted to commit suicide. Now, how can you say that somebody like that is perfect? Well, in his eyes, that was the only choice he had. Okay? He hadn't succeeded because he was still talking to me. He hadn't managed to kill himself, which said to me probably he didn't want to die. And as it was the case, he didn't. But we didn't talk about him being broken, because this doesn't help people at all. By saying somebody's broken doesn't help. And if you're in the business of trying to help people change, then if you're starting to see them as broken people, you're starting at the lowest common denominator. I always see what's working in people and how do they want to change. So and Tina, you must have heard me say this before, when people come to me and say, I don't want to have this behaviour, they'll say, I don't want to smoke. I say, okay, what would you get if you gave up smoking? So we start to reframe things so they start to see a different reality, if you like, because they never thought of that. They just thought about giving up the behaviour. I say, what happens when you stop having that behaviour? Imagine not having that behaviour. What would you achieve? And then they start to think of a different reality. And this is what I mean by people work perfectly. It's just that their choices are limited. My job, and Craig will probably agree with me, I'm sure he will, our job is to help people have more choices, because the more choices you have in life, okay, the more you get out of it. Essentially, it's about creating choice. But I would never say people are broken. Um, that just makes you feel sorry for them, which is not good. Um, what have we got here? All about community building and engagement, adding value to the world. If you would write a novel, what would it be about? I'll come to that in a second. Um, I'll just carry on with what I was saying, and Craig's just said, I hate it as a therapist and coach when people say someone is broken. People are not broken. At that moment in time, the way they are functioning serves their purpose, their best option at the time, which reiterates what I've said. We help give them choices by listening, by looking, by using our senses and working out what it is. People never really, when they come to people like me and Craig, they don't know what they want. They've come to their wits' end. They've reached the end of their map. The map stops there. And after that, they'll be monsters. Yeah, you don't know. So my job, Craig's job, is to make that map bigger, put more detail in so you have more choices. It's like having an A to Z map or an Ordnance Survey map. An A to Z only gives you so much information, page by page. An Ordnance Survey map gives you tremendous amounts of detail. And then, of course, you've got other maps for what goes on underground. You've got other types of maps which pilots use. And if you look at those, it's a completely different world. And we can look at different maps of the world which change your perception. And that's the job of a good therapist, a good coach. It's to show people that, look, mate, there's nothing wrong with you as you are, but obviously you want to change. So let's see where we can take you. And I think when you go and work on that basis, it's a win-win. Yeah, it's a win-win for everybody. So let's go back now. Kate, I'm assuming this is addressed to me. If you would write a novel, what would it be about? Well, I started writing a novel a few years ago, and it was for 16, 17-year-old lads, girls, lads and lasses, adolescents. And it was about a guy called Adam Sterling, who is highly skilled in Silat and trained with his great uncle over in Malaysia, who worked on a plantation out there. It's quite a convoluted thing, and it involves Pencak Silat. It involves Indonesian spirit worship, Buddhism, philosophy, violence, Western perspectives on the East and Eastern perspectives on the West, international terrorism, and much, much more. I think I got about, 100 pages into it, and I put it down, and I was doing some other project for somebody, because obviously I've got to go where I can get paid, and that wasn't making me any money. I may go back to it. I've had a few ideas on novels, trust me, and I've got a lot of unfinished novels. Maybe when I haven't got all of this stuff to do, then maybe I'll write it. Because when you're writing, you need to devote 3 to 4 hours every single day. I mean, I've been putting blog posts out, writing stuff for websites every single day. I'm writing a book, Beyond Beliefs, which is non-fiction, obviously. But these things take time, and I would love to be able to sit down and write a novel. It would be marvellous to be able to just sit down and write some fiction as well, because I do enjoy fiction. Don't read a lot of it because I don't have the time. I read a lot of non-fiction, as you know. And you guys have written novels. Like I say, I know a few novelists. And once you get that novel written, though, you're never assured success. Obviously, it's certainly in the lap of the gods, shall we say. It's down to good luck, meeting the right people at the right time. And Mark, my friend Mark, had been writing. I believe he was been writing Sleepyhead, I think it was, his first novel while he was a comedian on the circuit in London. And he used to be writing it in between gigs, in between small acting parts and things like that, because he was an actor. That's where I met him at university. And he put it together, and he got an advance on it. I'm not sure exactly the process, but I think he would probably agree, he was very lucky. His first book was printed, and it made, it was a real success. And that's down to, of course, the writing as well. But I've spoken to quite a lot of writers who continue to write because they have to, they feel the need to, and get absolutely nowhere professionally in terms of making money. I think the internet's making it easier with vanity publishing and this sort of thing, and I don't think they call it vanity publishing anymore, do they? I think everybody self-publishes nowadays because obviously you can have access to the internet and advertise the product yourself. When my book was published, the internet was, well, it was around. It wasn't like it is now. It was 2002, and I had a publisher. So I entered into a contract and a deal whereby the publisher kept copyright of the book. So I can't use the book in any shape or form. I would have to completely rewrite it if I wanted to sell it myself. And I make 75p off each book. The book retails, I think, for 14 quid or 11 quid, something like that. Same with the DVD. The rights are owned by the company. So if I want to use any element of that book, I'll have to get permission, even though I am the author. It's a funny world, publishing. But obviously, if you're publishing a novel, which will sell in its millions, and you're getting 3%, you're going to make a lot of money. You know, what's the cover price of a novel now? About 8 quid, 10 quid, 3% of that. It's not bad. And you sell 1 million of them. You've done it, haven't you? Sell a few 100,000. You know, novels will sell in large numbers. Whereas what I might be lucky, I might have sold 10,000. Oh, not even that. Probably 6,000 books on Muay Thai. Maybe. And Justin got paid £1 for filming the DVD. Yeah, I didn't even get paid for it. I didn't even get a penny for it. Oh, well, I did. I got. What did I get? I got 45p a copy, and I don't know how many they sold. Probably 1,000, if that. You know, I mean, I made hardly anything out of it, but it was fun doing it, and yeah, it was good fun. But looking back on it, I would do things differently now. I mean, I have got bits of a Thai boxing book. I mean, I've got the original Ultimate Self-Protection, which is about that thick, and I've got to reword it and rewrite it so I can publish it myself. But to be honest, I don't know whether I've got the time. I don't know whether it would be worth publishing it, to be perfectly honest, because I don't think I'd sell that many copies. The internet's a big old place, you know, and I'm not sure. I'm sort of moving more into the area of, I guess, move more into the area of, so I'm still teaching Thai boxing, obviously that's something I'll always do, but it's got to be hands-on, hasn't it? And I love visiting the different clubs and, you know, teaching person to person. I like meeting people. And of course I want to expand the meditation and the self-development side of things to a certain extent. And of course I've got the Medicate Academy Limited. That's where the real money is. It's, although I wouldn't say it was like a job, because I love doing that as well, where I'm teaching medics, GP trainees, physiotherapists, nurses, and of course physicians associates, clinical education and communication skills. That's where the real money is. You know, I'm never going to make a fortune out of Muay Thai or meditation because that's not why I set it up. So as long as I can make a living, that'd be good. But the professional side of things is where the real money is. So we're sort of almost 3/4 of an hour into the live stream now, and we've had a steady 12 people. So if any of you other guys have got anything else you want to talk about, that'd be really good. What is it you teach them again? Oh, okay. So Stuart asked the question, what is it I teach the students? Okay, so 2 different threads here. I'm a simulated patient, i.e. role player, a medical role player. So medical students of all kinds, nurses, doctors, physicians associates, physiotherapists, have to take histories. And taking a history from a patient is absolutely vital, because you want to get all the information you need in order to ascertain the diagnosis and give the right treatment. So my job is to make sure that they communicate effectively in a sense of gaining rapport with the patient. Rapport is the key to gaining trust. And once you've gained their trust, the patient starts to open up. Obviously, there has to be a structure to the way the interview, if you want to call it that, is held. And it follows a loose structure where you take in such things as previous medical history, family history, and we use a technique called Socrates, which describes if somebody says they've got pain, sight, onset, character, and so on. The different systems checks that we have to do. So we have to ensure that the student communicates effectively, doesn't wind the patient up, because we'll give feedback on that. Because at the end of it, once we've finished the history taking scenario and they've said goodbye, which has to be done in 8 minutes for the exams, and 8 minutes is not a long time when you're under pressure, we then give feedback to the student. Normally what happens is the structure is this. The student gives feedback about themselves, what they did well. Their colleagues who were watching will give feedback on what they thought their colleague did well. The clinician, who is usually in the room with me, will give feedback on the clinical aspect of things, i.e. the diagnosis, and then I give feedback on how did the patient feel. Did they feel they could trust you? Did they ask the right questions? Did they miss something? Okay, so that's one job that I do. The other job is what's called associate clinical education. That's where the students have been trained in a number of physical skills. So we'll say, for example, doing a respiratory exam, how to examine the respiratory system of a patient. So they'll come in, introduce themselves, wash their hands, and then they'll conduct a respiratory exam on me as a patient. I will then give them feedback about, did they do it correctly? Did they miss anything? Because I was trained in clinical exams. So I've been trained to do the physical exams for the respiratory system, the cardiovascular system, the cranial nerves, i.e. the brain and the body, the GI, gastrointestinal systems, the musculoskeletal systems of the body. In fact, everything a doctor is trained to do. So I was trained to do those exams in the correct order, in the correct way that allows you to come up with the correct diagnosis. So that is what I do with Meducate. That's a company that I set up, and I've been doing that about 12 years now. So my GP hates me, because obviously when I see a doctor in a capacity as a patient, they know what I do, and I know whether they're doing it right or not. And yes, when you're a highly skilled medic, you will take shortcuts because you know what you're doing. But a young doctor, somebody new to it, needs to cover all the bases to ensure that they don't miss anything in a cardiovascular exam, for example, or a respiratory exam, for example. So they normally start at the foot of the bed. They must look at the patient first and talk about what they can see. How does the patient look? Looking at skin colour, tone and pallor. If they're distressed and sweating, clammy, and then they'll move up to the patient and take their hand, and they'll notice from the hands the nails, the palms. There's all sorts of things you look for in the hands on a patient: cholinica, leukonychia, genuine lesions, Osler's nodes, all of these things, clamminess, sweatiness, palm erythema. These are all terms that doctors use all the time. They'll then move up and take the pulse, maybe the brachial pulse if they're doing a cardiovascular exam. Then they'll move to a carotid pulse. Then they'll look in the eyes, the mouth, and the face and the head. They then move down to the chest examination, look for scars, swelling, fasciculations, and then listen to the areas of the heart. Yeah, the aorta, the pulmonary area, the mitral, and the tricuspid. And I'll observe them doing this and make sure that they do it correctly. Things like blood pressures, respiratory exams, and so on. Yeah, pretty intensive. I learned a hell of a lot in a year. And actually did think at one time about becoming a physician's associate to do the PA postgrad course, because I could have got on that. But I don't have £18,000 and I can't take time off work to do it. But I would love to have done it and trained as a physician's associate and work with real patients. So that's my job as well. That's the other job I do. And of course sometimes, well, back in the day I used to do lots of motion capture as well. Now occasionally I go in and advise on motion capture. So I'll go in as an advisor, training the actors, teaching the actors how to behave in a mocap environment, motion capture environment, because not like normal acting. And Matt Caulfield's on. Which do you think is the better bear, Paddington or Pooh? Pooh. Because, and only because, he's a Taoist. What does that mean? Come on. The Tao of Pooh. Right, well, yeah. There's a book came out called The Tao of Pooh. And The Tay of Piglet. Fascinating book. Brilliant books for an insight into Taoism. And that's Taoism. The Tao of Pooh. In fact, that's going to be the topic of next week's live. Oh, there isn't a live stream next week, guys. But there is one the following week. Okay? I can't do the live stream, boo-hoo, boo-hoo, next week. So I'm doing it the following week. But we'll do the Tao of Pooh. In the meantime, get the book and read it. It's a good book. And then we can discuss it. Tao of Pooh. Alright, there you go. I'll put it in the comments. It's a really good book. You probably pick it up for about 50p on Amazon. In the used section. And I've got it somewhere, but I can't put my hands on it. It's probably upstairs in the... yeah, Craig said it's a great book as well. So, honestly, Tao of Pooh. Brilliant book. Full of Taoist aphorisms. And if you don't know what if you don't know what Taoism is, you will when you read the book. Okay? It's a philosophy allegedly created by Lao Tzu. Okay? But there's a lot of academics now who think that Lao Tzu and Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, were one and the same person. Who knows? A lot of striking similarities between the philosophies, particularly the philosophies of early Indian Buddhism, and is demonstrated by a school called the Madhyamaka school of Buddhism, and of course Zen, as it became in Japan, and Chan, as it is in China. Yeah, there's another whole area that will take more than just, 8 minutes left on the live stream. So, guys, thanks ever so much for coming on tonight. 12 is a good number. Maybe when we have a holiday next week, the following week we'll have twice as many, and it would be good to get that many on. And Kay didn't even mention swords. But Kay will be pleased to know that me and Murray were putting sub-menus together for the Prior Peach Eye website, and under Edged Weapons we've got a section called East meets West. So there's going to be Eastern swords and edge weapons and Western swords and weapons. So, and Craig, because we only got 8 minutes, I guess. So all the funny comments are coming in now. So Craig says, red or brown sauce with a bacon sandwich. What if you don't eat bacon? Ah, I hear you all cry. When I did eat bacon, it was red sauce. Every single time. I have a friend who puts red and brown sauce on, and mustard. Who knows? But no. Bacon, highly processed of all the meat family. Faken. Who's got faken? Faken. What's faken? Faken? Who said faken? It wasn't me. Did I say faken or bacon? I'm sure I didn't say faken. Fake on. F-A-K-E. Faken. Fake bacon. Ah, yeah, it's very good. You see, I'm a bit slow. It's been a long day, mate. I've been online part of it. I've been writing. And I've been up the gym, Craig, as you know. And that's not a euphemism. I'm going up the gym. But I've worked out a new timetable and it's going to be fun. Well, it's not, because I'm limited with the number of people I can have. But with 6 minutes to go, I don't know what else there is to talk about, guys. I hope the Matrix stuff was interesting. I found myself sort of thinking on my feet a little bit, trying to remember the film. But I know for a fact there's certain elements of Descartes in there as well, and probably a couple of other French philosopher's Bouchard, I think his name is. I can't remember. It's a while since I've looked at any French philosophy. Or French philosophers of the Enlightenment period. So he says checking his phone. We've got 5 minutes left. And yeah, it's all been going very good. So please, guys, remember, next week is not on, but the following week will be. All right. So Kay Van Dam says, yeah, Matrix was good. Next time, Star Wars. Oh, no. Well, Star Wars is more or less based on some of Joseph Campbell's stuff, the hero myths and so on. So maybe I can come at the Star Wars. We'll talk about Dower Poo, but maybe the Star Wars, I can come at it from a Joseph Campbell point of view. And yeah, see you in 2 weeks, Kaleem. Good to see you on here, mate. No, but the Star Wars thing, the Joseph Campbell thing, a hero with 1,000 faces, yeah. Maybe I can do a chat on how Star Wars is written in that vein. The different characters. I talk about it in Muay Thai and Myths, or Myths and Muay Thai. I think I did on one of my blog posts. So go and check out the blog post. Go on my blog post as well, guys, please, and put a comment on there as well, because this again helps Google push it up the page. Oh God, Craig, yeah, I should start breaking down 1980 by George Orwell. You'll be here for a year. We're living in George Orwell times, mate. We're living in 1984 by George Orwell. We're living in it. Do we need to talk about it anymore? We've seen it happen. It's happening in front of us, around us. I would start breaking down. Actually, if I was to look at any Orwell, I would definitely start having a breakdown. So, Craig, I'll see you 2 p.m. on Sunday. And everybody else, unless you want to sneak in and pop something on there, I shall say good night. Have a great time wherever you are. Thanks ever so much for coming on. And let's all say a cooey goodbye and do the old Y bow. Come on, let's see them all. I know you've got 10-second delay, so don't worry about it. Yes, good, yep. See you, Conrad. See you, Stu. I'll have a good evening. Yeah, thanks, Kay. I'll see you tomorrow night for Thai boxing and sword. See you Sunday, mate. Take care, Craig. Thanks, Tina. Thanks to everybody who came on tonight. And I will say good night and have a pleasant evening. Yeah. Thank you.